R.O.B should stand for Really Obsolete Buddy, but I still love him.
8-bit joystick.
I just got a box from Kyushu, Japan, sent by my friend Dave. He spied something rad at the game shop that I just had to have. This is Robo-san, more specifically, the Nintendo Family Computer Robot. Domo Arigato, Mr. Roboto. It is the Japanese version of R.O.B the Robot, a one-time Nintendo mascot and a fascinating piece of Nintendo lore with a conspiracy theory. R.O.B was designed to solve a problem for Nintendo. I will explain. R.O.B has taken his place alongside the Power Glove as an uber-cool Nintendo collectible that people now just lust for with rose-colored glasses. Now, I knew a kid on my block who actually had R.O.B the Robot, and I actually played with it as a kid. I actually had a Power Glove back in the day, and the novelty wore off, and this is the natural progression of my life, descent into obsolete plastic. Both are fascinating to collect, but not necessarily fun to use. But Nintendo needed R.O.B to launch the NES. R.O.B is the cybernetic plastic godson of the godfather of classic Nintendo technology, Gunpei Yokoi. It wasn't enough for him to invent the light gun, the D-pad, the entire concept of LCD screens for games, and inventing handheld game systems with the Game Boy. But he was assigned to fix a problem vexing Nintendo, and he fixed it the best way that he knew how, by inventing a toy. The Nintendo Famicom was released in Japan in 1983. Since its inception, Nintendo had their eye on the lucrative, much larger North American market. However, 1983 saw a full-scale nuclear meltdown of the American video game market. American retailers got stuck with a huge glut of unsold Atari-era products and were justifiably soured on the concept of selling a new video game system by this scrappy Japanese company called Nintendo. It might be a little hard to wrap your head around, but in 1983's America, Nintendo was known for making a handful of arcade games and some handheld LCD Game & Watch toys, but that was about it. American retail stores were still shell-shocked from the financial dumpster fire that was 1983. Many of them thought if American titans of electronic video games couldn't sustain a video game market, then this Japanese company was a bad bet. American toy retailers simply did not trust Nintendo to make a video game system that would be a hit with American kids after they were burned by Atari, Mattel, and Coleco. Gunpei Yokoi got to work by doing what he did best, by taking a withered, matured technology and using it in a creative and new way. R.O.B is an amalgamation of three existing withered technologies: light guns, electric motors, and spinning tops. Light guns. Yokoi and his team previously invented light guns with the incredibly impressive Wild Gunman, a gigantic arcade cabinet that actually featured two 16mm film reels being projected and then switched on the fly. The humble light gun comprised of a photoelectric sensor that could detect information that was encoded in specifically timed light flashes, and it could detect whether the gun was pointed at the target, thus registering a hit or a miss. Nintendo was also working on the Famicom gun controller that would get localized into the zapper, that used screen flashes from a CRT TV to detect whether the gun was pointed at the virtual target. R.O.B has two photoelectric sensors, and the game will use the timing of various green flashes to relay specific commands on how he should move. Electric motors and gears. Nintendo is thought of today as a software company, but they really had quite an impressive team of electronic and mechanical engineers, and R.O.B is a mechanical masterpiece. The arm array can twist around to 5 different positions, raised up and down, and bring its arms together. There are slip-on plastic hands that allow him to either grasp round plastic blocks for stack up, or the tops of spinning gyros for Gyromite. The spinning tops of Gyromite take inspiration from traditional Koma rope-powered spinning top toys. Nintendo is based in Kyoto, Japan, and the ancient imperial city has been home to theater and festival traditions going back thousands of years. Daigura is a Japanese stage trick where a ball or cylinder is placed and balanced on top of a wood-rimmed umbrella that is rotated really fast. When playing Gyromite, one of the attachments is a D-battery-powered mechanical motor. The player can direct R.O.B to place these gyroscopic spinner tops with a ball bearing, and they can remain spinning for up to 5 minutes. The crazy thing about R.O.B is that he worked long enough to impress toy buyers at retail stores. It was a technological Trojan horse and allowed Nintendo to get their foot in the door and their product on their shelves. Along with an offer from Nintendo to buy back any unsold merchandise, R.O.B convinced New York-based toy stores to give them enough shelf space for their test launch of the NES in 1985. There were 3 price point bundles. There was the control deck, which just came with the system and no games, and was $199 at launch, but it was later re-released at $89. The action set, which came with a control deck, a zapper light gun, and a cartridge with Super Mario Bros. And Duck Hunt, and it retailed for $150. That's the one I had. And then there was the deluxe set, which had R.O.B the robot, the control deck, the zapper light gun, and Gyromite with all the accessories to play it, and it was a whopping $299. Now, inflation really knows how to twist the knife, and adjusting for the control deck's price from the summer of 1986, it would be $577, and then later $258 in January of 2025. The NES Action Set would be $430 in 2025. And the deluxe set with R.O.B would be a staggering $867 in 2025. Nintendo only made 2 games for R.O.B, Gyromite and Stack Up, known as Robot Gyro and Robot Block in Japan. Gyromite, known as Robot Gyro, is the Nintendo Robot series game that feels the most like a traditional Nintendo title. You play as a bald, white-haired professor in a lab coat, navigating a mechanical factory filled with ropes and platforms. Your mission? Find and defuse bundles of dynamite scattered throughout the factory before the timer runs out. The factory is also inhabited by bird-like creatures called smicks, which can be distracted by picking up radishes. It sounds bizarre, but to 1980s video game kids, that made perfect sense. The Gyromite set included a tray to hold the second NES controller, and the intended gameplay involved commanding R.O.B to pick up a gyro, a spinning top, and place it on a motor to get it spinning, and then transfer it to a pedestal. This pedestal would then depress, pressing a button on the second controller, which then in turn controlled hydraulic pistons within the game. It is an incredibly convoluted process. It is far easier and faster to simply press the buttons yourself than relying on R.O.B to manipulate the gyros without dropping them. While controlling the robot presents a unique challenge, cheating by manually pressing the buttons yourself makes the game significantly easier. Ideally, Gyromite is played with R.O.B as Player 2, receiving commands via light flashes from the TV. However, Gyromite is arguably more enjoyable when played with a second human player that controls the hydraulic pistons. This puts the professor's life directly in the hands of your companion, who might find it more amusing to crush the professor or trap him with the smicks. You're literally placing your virtual life in the hands of another person. Gyromite functions better as a cooperative trust exercise with another human than a solo experience with an elaborate robot contraption. I recall playing with R.O.B initially, but we quickly gave up and I had the friend control the pistons directly. A much more fun experience filled with squished smicks and the occasional unfortunate professor demise. Squish. Stack Up! The other launch title that featured R.O.B was Stack Up, a game that feels more like an elaborate tech demo than a fully realized product. The core gameplay revolves around placing blocks on pedestals around R.O.B, and then using the robot to stack these blocks in a specific order displayed on the screen. You control R.O.B indirectly by having Professor Hector jump around on keypads on an on-screen keyboard sending commands. Interestingly, Stack Up gives R.O.B 5 different height levels compared to Gyromite's 3. Stack Up came with a new set of snap-on accessories for R.O.B, making this game more expensive than other NES games because not only it required R.O.B to play it, but it was inherently limited to players who already owned the R.O.B accessory. Another fascinating detail, while some early copies of Gyromite included the Famicom game with an official Nintendo adapter, every copy of Stack Up contains a Famicom to NES adapter. For more on this, check out my video on the official Nintendo to NES adapter, link in the video description or at the end of this video. Stack Up relies entirely on the honor system. Neither the NES nor R.O.B can detect if the player has correctly stacked the blocks. You can press a button at any time to signal completion. So where Gyromite with 2 players is a trust exercise between humans, Stack Up is a trust exercise between the player and the game. Now, in order to play these games, you need to have a Nintendo 8-bit system, a CRT TV, R.O.B with enough batteries facing the TV, the game either on a cartridge or an EverDrive, and enough accessories for either game. My Robo-san was obviously kept on the shelf as a personal collectible before it was traded into the Japanese retro game shop on Kyushu. I can load up the games and send commands to R.O.B, but alas, he has plastic arms without plastic hands and no spinning tops or blocks to manipulate. Jeremy Parish has been a huge inspiration to me to create this YouTube channel, and he graciously allows other YouTube users to repurpose his footage. So shout out to Jeremy Parish senpai for helping me with this video. Mark of Tapper's Toys in Hillsboro, Oregon has a complete Nintendo Entertainment System Deluxe set on sale, and he offered for me to borrow it for this video. Now, that's pretty high up there in price, and I was worried that I would mess it up, so I went with reusing footage instead. Prices for R.O.B are about $110 for R.O.B without any accessories. The accessories to play Gyromite are about $150 alone, and Stack Up complete in box is over $1,500. However, a Japanese set of Robo block is under $100. My Famicom Robot-san was a bargain at just 5,500 yen or $37. He was actually listed as junk, so I was pleasantly surprised to put batteries in him, flip the switch, and have him boot up like a champ. Now, he has probably been sitting on a shelf and hasn't been played in ages, but after getting some new batteries, he sprung to life like it was 1985. I suspect that his alignment is a little off because it sounds like he doesn't stop when he's supposed to. But he was marked as junk, but it's still worth it. Do you need R.O.B? No. But should you get one? Maybe, if you can find one without breaking the bank. Another fine option is to buy yourself an amiibo of R.O.B for about $15 and just have that on your shelf. Dave also sent me a junk OG Famicom. I had initially wanted to get a model of the Famicom for my desk at work, but Japan is plentiful with retro video games, and it was basically cheaper to get a real Famicom. Now, I'm going to make a video on using an unmodified original Famicom system in the US, an AV modded original Famicom, and the Nintendo AV Famicom, so you better subscribe so you don't miss it. If you like this video, it would really help out if you would hit that like button. This is 8-Bit Joystick. Stay awesome. Play retro.